Amanda. Okay, so I'm going to be telling you a story, and it's called The Talking Egg. So I read this story for my class, and then I have to tell it and not be able to read it. So I just have to tell it how I remember it. So this story is long ago. There's a mother and two daughters. One of the daughters was really mean, and her mother was really mean too. And the other daughter was really sweet and nice. And so the mean daughter and the mother, the mean daughter's name is Rose, and the nice daughter's name is Blanca. The mean daughter, Rose, and the mother said, "Blanca, we are thirsty." And so Blanca said, "Okay, mother, I will go to the well and get you guys some water." So she walked down to the well to get her mother and Rose water. So she filled her bucket with water, and then a little old lady came by and she said, "Oh, dearie, I am very thirsty. Can I have a sip of your water?" And Blanca, being so sweet, gave the little old lady a sip of her water, and she said, "Take as much water as you want." And so the little old lady drank and drank and drank, and she said, "Oh, you are so kind. You will be blessed." And then the little old lady went off into the woods, and Blanca went back home to her mother and Rose. Now, being mean and greedy, her mother and Rose said, "You took so long, we are so thirsty, and now this water is hot and we can't even drink it." And Blanca was so scared that they were yelling and they started hitting her. Is that very nice? No. And so Blanca ran off into the woods. Now when she was in the woods, she started crying and crying because she was scared to go home. Because she didn't want to go home to where they were going to yell at her and hit her. So she went in the woods and she was crying, and that little old lady came and she said, "Oh, dearie, why are you crying?" And she said, "I'm so scared to go home. My mother and sister are beating me up and they're saying I was not a good daughter." And she said, "Oh, it's okay. You can come home with me and we'll have supper and you can stay the night. But you must promise not to laugh at anything you see in my house." So Blanca said, "I promise." So they went back to the old lady's house. And when Blanca first walked into the yard, she saw a two-headed cow with curly horns. Now she remembered her promise and she didn't laugh. And then the cow said, "Eeyaw, eeyaw." Is that what a cow's supposed to say?
No.
No. So she didn't laugh, and she kept walking into the gate. And when the gate opened, there were colorful chickens everywhere. And instead of saying, "Moo," like a chicken, they said, "Moo," like cows. It was all mixed up. But she remembered her promise, and she didn't laugh. So they got into the house, and the little old lady said, "Here is a bone. Put it in that pot, and we'll have some stew for supper." And Blanca said, "How is this bone going to give us stew for supper?" But she didn't say it. She just thought it in her head because she knew she didn't want to upset the old lady. So she put this bone in the pot over the fire, and she said, "Should I add some water to make it a stew?" And she said, "Look into the pot." And the pot was full of a big, juicy vegetable and beef stew. She was, "How did that happen?" And then she looked over at the little old lady, and the little old lady had taken her hat off and put it on her knee. And she was brushing her old gray hairs. And then she put it back on her head, and she said, "Oh, that's better." Blanca again thought, "Oh, this is very interesting," but she didn't say anything because the little old lady said, "You cannot laugh at anything you see." So after a big dinner of nice warm stew, Blanca fell fast asleep on the bed. In the morning, she didn't want to go home. She wanted to stay with the old lady, but the little old lady said, "You must go home, but first go out and milk my cow." So Blanca went out and milked her cow, and when she brought the milk back in, it was the sweetest milk she'd ever tasted from this two-headed, curly-horned cow. So she was so very surprised. And then the little old lady said, "Now, before you go home, since you've been a very sweet little girl, you may go out into the chicken house and get some eggs. But the eggs will say, 'Take me, take me,' if they want you to take them. But if the eggs say, 'Don't take me,' should you take them?" No. So Blanca went out to the chicken house, and there was two different types of eggs. One was just plain, like regular old eggs you have in the fridge, and the other ones were jeweled and gold and silver and were very pretty. But those ones were saying, don't take me, don't take me, don't take me. And the plain white eggs were saying, take me, take me, take me. So she filled her basket with the plain white eggs. Now before she left, the little old lady said, now on your way home, when you're almost there, throw one egg at a time over your left shoulder, and you will have surprises. Blanca was wondering, how are these eggs going to give me surprises? But she did just as the little old lady said, and as she walked home, she threw an egg over her shoulder, and when she turned around, there were jewels and beautiful dresses and a horse with a cart and all these beautiful gifts. So she filled the cart with all her gifts and she rode home. When she got home, her mother and her sister Rose were just surprised with all the stuff they brought. And they said, where did you get all this stuff? And she explained to them how she met the little old lady and she got the gifts from the little old lady in the woods. So, when Blanca had fallen asleep, because the mother and the sister were very greedy, the mother said, Rose, you're going to go out into the woods tomorrow and you're going to find that little old lady and get us some more of those eggs so we can go live fancy and rich in the city. And Rose said, why can't we just take Blanca's stuff so I don't have to go in the woods? And the mother said, that's not enough for both of us. We need more. So the next morning, Rose went out into the woods and found the little old lady. And she said, oh, little old lady, my sister Blanca told me all about your beautiful house. Will you show it to me? And so the little old lady said, okay, but you must promise not to laugh at anything you see. So she took Rose to her house. But when Rose saw the cows and the chicken, she laughed so hard and said, oh, this is such a funny sight. And the little old lady was not happy at all. But she took Rose into the house, and when the old lady took her head off this time, Rose snatched her head and said, you will tell me how my sister got all those gifts or I'm taking your head. So, since the little old lady wanted her head back, she told Rose to go into the chicken house and to take the eggs that say take me and to don't take the eggs that say don't take me. But do you think Rose listened?
No.
No. When she went into the chicken house, she saw those shiny gold and jeweled eggs and she took all of them even though they were saying, don't take me, don't take me, don't take me. So when she started walking home and throwing the eggs over her shoulders, do you think jewels and fancy clothes popped out?
No.
What do you think popped out? Does anybody have a guess? Actually,
And the presents popped out and the eggs.
well, when she threw them over her shoulder, alligators and crocodiles and wolves and bumblebees started chasing her because they were not the right eggs to take. So she started running and running, and her mom had come to meet her, and her mom looked back and said, oh my goodness, and they started getting stung by bees, and the crocodiles were biting at their ankles, and they ran to their house and they shut themselves in the house. And when they got home, Blanca wasn't there because she had left because she was tired of being mistreated by her family. So Rose and her mother were stuck in the house because all those animals were chasing after her.
Did she take the cart?
Yeah, the end.
Can we see the picture?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. That's good. Thanks.